All right, all right. I tell you what, this day has just been over the top. There has been so much going on, and I just am so excited to bring up our next presenter. Our next guest is the lead advisor of OU Esports Club and a technology strategist at the University of Central Oklahoma. Now, to quote him, esports in general is the wild, wild west, especially in the collegiate sector. However, in Oklahoma, we have a potential for amazing collaborations as we figure out which path works for each of our individual strengths and weaknesses. Yes, we will have to be competitive with each other at some point, but we have to embrace collaboration first to elevate the profile of the topic, build substance, and provide an infrastructure we can all operate in. The sooner we can achieve that, the faster we can be competitive in everything esports related. For the past 3 years, he has dreamt, ate, worked, slept esports development at the University of Central Oklahoma. The University of Oklahoma, forgive me, I'm so sorry. Boy, that's a bad one. Okay, and while doing so, has personified the phrase, a rising tide lifts all boats. Now, please put your hands together and welcome to the Cory's Audiovisual Esports Arena, Mr. Mike Aguilar.
Test, test, test. Hey. First of all, thank you for that amazing introduction. And I want to pause a second because is Ty back already out here? Ty Wallace? You think he's in the back? Anyway, I saw Ty dancing up here a second ago. And while you may think that's funny, that's what we're building. Like, imagine the amazing feeling he has to be on a stage like this in front of his peers. And on top of that, Ty doesn't go to my university, but every time I see him, I see how he's doing. The same with Billy in the back, who's been involved with UCO as well. And that's what I mean by the introduction that Robert gave me in regards to we have to elevate each other. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is we're talking about the investment opportunity. That's important. But there's a lot of numbers thrown at you. And unfortunately, a lot of those things kind of just go out. Hopefully, you go and research those for yourself so you can make them muscle memory for you. But then we start, again, talking about the higher education industry. And that in itself is a unique, siloed path of development. But what came before all of that? Why are we even here right now? And it's important to understand the roots, and specifically the grassroots energy that it takes to build successful esports infrastructures. Now, it all starts with community. And inside of this room, there are some ridiculous community leaders. And there are several things that's important, and I start with community on purpose because no matter what we do at the University of Oklahoma, UCO, RSU, OCU, it doesn't matter which university here is at this tier. It all starts with a community. Because if you don't have a base to sell to, how are you going to make money? So first, I want to reference something really quickly. I'm going to point to Ariel West, who is a faculty member at UCO and also works for UCO. And she's involved in an organization called Get Wrecked, which is the biggest and premier League of Legends tournament organizer in the state. 3 years ago, when you started at Get Wrecked, how many teams were involved in your splits? Now today, with this upcoming split that's launching, how many teams are involved? 4. That started with 4 3 years ago, and these are teams of 5 each. And now you said 36 with a week to go. That's, yeah. That's important to reference, because if you build a venue, there's the person you need to talk to do League of Legends events. 36 teams times 5, and their families, fans, and supporters. And that's state of Oklahoma. What else? Yeah. And that started basically with an idea, let's just put some structure into it. Ricky McNeil back there, HXC. I'm going to reference specifically Super Bit Wars. And Super Bit Wars is hosted on OU's campus. I'm not approaching this from the context of an OU partnership in any way. HXC specific, Super Bit Wars, which is a flagship FGC-based focused tournament in the state. Year 1, how many attendees? This upcoming year, how many do you anticipate?
Right. Again, if you're getting into investing in esports, there's the man you need to talk to for FGC. Weaver, you too, same energies. The last one I want to reference is, where's Adrian? So Adrian here runs a internet-style esports cafe in Tahlequah, in the eastern part of Oklahoma. How many events do you put on a monthly basis to sustain that business model? Right. And about attendance-wise, what do you get? 15 to 30. Okay. How's business? Could be better, right? Yeah. Part of it's in your Tahlequah, sorry. Well, the point here is that you already have subject matter experts in the state right now that can tell you about their struggles, their failures, their successes, their wins, and their losses. And these are all things that if we're not listening to in the context of starting to invest and starting to develop, then you're missing the opportunity, and you're just gonna be another statistic that starts with a high fireball energy, and then 12 months later, you don't exist. So the energies that pre-exist in this state are the energies that you need to at least knock on the doors of and say, help me develop, help me figure out what makes sense. So community is the core of anything. It doesn't matter if it's the pro scene, the community scene, the higher education scene, the K through 12 scene. K through 12 is the unique one because we're the ones that are instilling community in them for the first time. So all of these are cyclical to each other. They all benefit, they're mutual. So as we develop esports and we develop the gaming communities, the next thing we need to do is promote it. Without strong marketing games, we all fail. UCO, how many events have you put on where the marketing was subpar and obviously the event was subpar? Several, probably? Now when the marketing's on point, when you have at least a month of awareness to it, how's the event? Ton times better, right. And I can attest that too. We just did a back-to-school League of Legends tournament on OU's campus, and we only marketed it 4 days in advance and only had 3 teams. What do you expect? Last semester when we did that, we had over 7 teams, 8 teams. So again, getting that profile up and going. But then all esports events, every event that we go, also have 2 other components. And I want to highlight the fact that it did not start with competition. You have people that will attend an HXC Red Dirt Rumble that are considered trash in gameplay, but they come every time because of community. So competition isn't even the driving force yet. It's the production, it's the marketing, it's the community. And when I talk about production, it's important to reference the reason why production is important. So if we define esports and we define gaming, first of all, they're not the same thing. Gaming is kind of like playing a pickup game of basketball with your friends on a local court. Esports is more the NBA Finals, all of this. Esports is a couch. We could play on the floor. In fact, I was making a reference to Billy is you could just take a switch in the middle of a grass field and literally host a crew battle on the battery of the switch. And that's how powerful that is. But elevating it to this is important. And the reason production is important is that, yes, we are predominantly a very introverted demographic. Not fully, but a lot of us only stay within our cliques and then some. So when we have production, it's not necessarily that we would turn down a feature on ESPN. However, if I'm in production and I can go and reference a clip or something from Twitch, then I can share that with my friends, the things that I value. My cheers, my modern day cheers, basically. And it's important to highlight that. Then we finally get to the point where we're elevating past all this grassroots energy and getting into the administrative level where we build these opportunities of investment, these opportunities to elevate further, create that home, that physical venue. Now the next question, minus UCO, do you have a venue? Get wrecked? We try. HXC, do you have a venue? No. Right. Do you need them though? Yes. Do you have to have them 100% though at this time? Easier if it was, but doable without, right? Because partnerships. UCO, you have a venue coming. You're going to not be able to answer that question. Congrats, by the way. Congrats. That's amazing. I'm jealous. This brand is jealous. So then we come in the administration part, the point where now we start to bring the wallets in. Now we get past the I'm slaving away 80 hours a week for my love of this, for my passion in this, for the fact that I get very little thank yous. And when they do get a thank you, it's worth its weight in gold. So now we want to elevate even further. And what do we do with that? We get to these venue operations phases where, yes, I'm going to do these flagship events like Super Bit Wars or an EVO or something like an Overwatch League tournament like we're starting to see at Esports Arena Arlington down the street. But on top of that, aside from flagship events, I'm going to ping on Adrian again, having a venue. How important are the smaller community-based mixer events in comparison to the bigger events? Right, because of community. So no matter which angle you approach esports, all these components exist. All of them are equally important. However, the phase at which they're important is significant. Community is everything. No matter what, if you're not building your fan base, you're not building your community, and that means it doesn't have to look like this. Obviously, Cory, I know you don't want to hear that, but the end goal is this. But it started before that. So be respectful of that, grow it organically, and then this becomes something that makes sense, and it doesn't have to be an insane investment. It's a way to elevate that community to the next phase. Okay, so now let's talk about how they converge. And time check really quick, because I'm going to have to speed through this. Okay, cool, there's plenty of time. All right, so I'm going to talk about all the different segments that are represented inside of it. So we talked about the disciplines that are needed, or the specific energies that are responsible for it. And the first thing starts with youth. And I'm not focusing on youth from the context of K through 12 education. I'm focused on youth from the sake of youth, whether it's at-risk youth, whether it's a minority demographic or underrepresented demographic, or it doesn't matter. The point is, and the beauty of this topic is that it just doesn't matter. All of them are here, and all of them are eligible for this. But that's the birth of your fan base. How many of us, the TOs, how many of y'all love Fortnite? Well, guess what? Guess what 14-year-olds play? For my university developers, what happened last week? Did you see the news? Epic build an entire esports infrastructure for K through 12 and higher ed. Guess what's coming? For the university administrators, guess what title is about to be your biggest recruitment title? Ouch. I'm not excited about that. But that's part of the evolving landscape that we have to adapt to. Games change. Not everything can last forever. Certain titles have the resilience, like we see with Dota 2, CSGO, League of Legends, and some just don't. Here's the Storm. Ouch. That's my favorite, sorry. Well, then we have the parental investments part of it. Students that, or parents that want to invest in the things that their students value and love. Now, that's also a slippery slope because a lot of students are like, aside from the Xbox I got them, I'm not spending any more money on this. I don't get it. And that's part of our fight to help educate, elevate, and be consistent in that message. So, then we have the grassroots segments that we talked about. This is the biggest core of the consumer of any product that you bring to market. If you have a venue, this is going to be your #1 consumer. It's not higher education. It's not the pro scene, at least in the early stages. It's the grassroots energy, because they're the ones that are already doing the work. That weekly Smash event. Is Ben still here? Cool. So on our campus, I saw Puyan earlier. Is he still? Isn't he here? Okay, cool. So I mentioned those two guys because they're involved in Smash programming for the state. Not necessarily higher education, both a little bit. Ben being involved in the higher education scene with UCO and a little bit further, but also Puyan being involved as kind of a godfather of Smash in the state. Our events, we run a Smash weekly, and almost all of our campuses run a Smash weekly or bi-weekly. And for our events in the holidays, those get up to 100 weekly attendances. And $2 entry, come play Smash. Half of those players are good, half of those players don't care. They're just part of that community, and that's important, because then you change that venue, and you incentivize it. Maybe they don't have to bring a setup anymore. They're used to bringing their own consoles. They're used to bringing their own monitors. When you change that and you incentivize it further with bigger wallets and bigger pockets, then it justifies elevating that cost to come attend and use that space. So organic opportunities to grow that energy. Then we have the digital community, and this is the one that's the most misunderstood. These are the people that you will probably never, ever meet in person, but they exist in your chat windows. They exist in Facebook. They exist on Twitter. They have a persona. People know how they act and behave. And these are the ones that are boosting people like Ninja or XQC or Shroud. These are the ones that buy into that social need, but their anxiety or their introvertedness keeps them from physically attending events often. And it is a big demographic that is not being catered to properly when we start hearing about investment in physical spaces. And the way that we can cater to those things is by building those digital incentives. So maybe they don't want to physically attend an event or as a physical event or physical space, but here's how you incentivize digital anonymity. You can do things that will say, you subscribe to my channel, I'm going to at least give you membership to these things that we produce. Or maybe I'll send you a care package with with memorabilia or something from this. But that's an entire demographic and the bigger percentile of consumption that a lot of people aren't looking at. The educational sector, the sector that I represent, there are so many opportunities in regards to what we develop. For me, the vision of higher education is to develop professionals of today and tomorrow, if we are fortunate enough to have the foresight of what tomorrow looks like. With this topic, I think we do. Again, at the beginning of this with Dr. Hannon, he referenced all the opportunities, STEM-related, journalism-related, broadcast-related. These are all things that I equally value on top of what you see with the competition. One of my favorite questions when I ask people that at least have a little bit of know is, where do you find an Overwatch coach? Yeah. So who's going to grow them? In UCO and RSU. That's where they're going to come from. So it's easy to find production journalists. I mean, that's a degree plan. It's easy to do business, law. International business is a big one that people aren't thinking about. Social work with K through 12 and at risk, education. You know, there's so many ways to approach this from the angle of academic curriculum. And it should be equally valued on top of the recruitment energies of building a team. But again, at the end of the day, that's only 6 students. And I'm not sure about the other campuses, but I have more than 6 students. So here's an opportunity for us to develop an entire workforce for an industry that's continuously growing, not just in Oklahoma, obviously that's our focus, but globally. And let's talk about China, and that's a whole other thing of demographics. We are fortunate enough that we do have a writer in our team who works for Team Liquid, for those that do know. And she's a nursing major. She's not even a journalism major. And she flies to Shanghai all the time. Just right here in Norman. She lives here. So we do have international business already happening. And then we have the pro and the private sector. And there's a lot of carryover between higher education and pro and private sector, but they're not even, I would say maybe 60% crossover. But when we put these all together, here's how the pro and private sector can impact all of those. So who's going to consume, or who's going to hire people, first of all? Yeah, universities do a little bit. Yeah, a little bit of youth. Yeah, there's energies all sprinkled through that. But the pro and private sector is the execution space. Education, grassroots, and youth is kind of the maker space. So if we're building a venue, then who's going to run the production team? Cory, Robert, how many people are on your production team? Right. Same skill set, right? Except obviously you wish you could TO a little bit, but same skill set. Well, those are all jobs here in esports. When you have a venue, you need a dedicated team like that, or at least the resources to plug into that team too. So those are jobs, again, that are absolutely essential for esports, on top of the other things that a lot of people aren't thinking about. They also bring in the big dollar sponsorship opportunities. Now, some of the benefits in higher education and K through 12 is, at least for the majority of the public sector, is that investment into us, investment into UCO, RSU, we're public schools. It's a tax write-off, it's a tax incentive. It can help at least cultivate these energies, which will eventually grow and groom and mature and stabilize the industries that we're dreaming of. The industries that we can start to see a little bit 5 to 10 years from now, even in our own backyard, versus the Mecca in North Texas with the Dallas Cowboys and Esports Arena Arlington and Mark Cuban and all the investments that we're seeing there, as well as 100 Thieves that we just saw their venue this week, if you haven't seen it. $35 million venue, pretty nuts. But it also serves as an incubator for maybe that next generation of shoutcaster or that next generation TO. Ricky, a question for you. For Super Bit Wars, Smash specifically, last year, how many did we have signed up? Okay. How many TOs did you need to run that? That's 20 jobs to make that event run smooth. And that's just the operations of the gameplay after the operations of development to develop the actual event. So you can see the staggering of tiers of jobs. So the point of this is that every single one of these pillars is an opportunity of investment, is an opportunity to grow, is an opportunity to collaborate. And very little did I talk about competition. Very little did I talk about gameplay. This is the business elements. These are the things that are going to make the dream for us. That Ty Wallace dancing for generations. Come stay and live and be happy and find a future. And the generation that we're dreaming of, the future generations, these next generations of kids, are going to come and, yeah, they might be spoiled because this is their norm, but our purpose as the older generation is to make it better for the next. So again, with higher education, our dream is to build the professionals of today and tomorrow. And with the pro sector and collaborations here on top of the educational energies, that can absolutely happen in Oklahoma. And Oklahoma's primed for it. The beauty of it is that, yeah, we're kind of a cheap state to invest into, which is a good thing. But investing smart is the challenge. And so coming to things like this is important. Before I sign off here, I do want to thank you for putting this on. This is extremely impactful to see. And having resources like this in our own backyard to be able to put on production and put on, or at least give us the tools to do this, is huge. Because I have a big college of journalism, and I am developing shoutcasters. I am developing professional writers. I am developing creative media production and video production. I have a big school of business that will be doing partnerships and marketing and brandability and things like this. And having arrangements like this help me find the practicum on a campus. And I imagine UCO is going down the same path with Ariel already teaching courses and a minor and a major coming down the road. OCU announcing as well, RSU as well in Claremore. And so our landscape in higher ed is elevating heavily. And if you're not taking notice, take notice. Because the pro sector, which will make the bigger splash, it will be the infrastructure that they tap into that solidifies their business. So here's an entry point into getting into esports in a tax incentivized way while supporting the bigger picture of what can make a splash and impact our community and bring a literal new industry to the state of Oklahoma. Thank you.